The door hadn't even finished sliding open when the first shot missed my head by less than an inch. The impact burned past my ear and slammed into the metal wall behind me, spraying molten fragments across the corridor. I dropped instantly, rolling forward instead of back. Most people retreat when they're attacked. That's why most people die. I came up low, already moving. The second shot came faster, tighter, aimed where my chest should have been if I had panicked. It wasn't. I grabbed the attacker's wrist before he could fire again and twisted. Hard. There was a sharp, wet crack. The weapon discharged into the ceiling as his arm folded the wrong way. He didn't scream, just made a choking sound as I drove my shoulder into his chest and slammed him into the wall hard enough to dent it. The corridor lights flickered. That wasn't good. Behind him, I saw movement. 2 more shapes stepping out of the shadows at the far end of the hall. Tall. Thin. Armor plating along their limbs. Not civilians. Not amateurs. I had maybe 2 seconds. I yanked the weapon free from the first attacker's broken grip and fired twice without aiming. The first shot hit center mass. The second missed, but not by much. It forced the third one to shift position. That was enough. I closed the distance before they could recover. Fast. Direct. No hesitation. The second attacker tried to bring up a blade, long, curved, glowing faint blue, but I was already inside his reach. My elbow connected with his throat. I felt cartilage collapse under the impact. He dropped. The third one was smarter. He didn't rush. He stepped back instead, raising his weapon slowly, carefully, like he understood exactly what I was. That made him dangerous. Human, he said. His voice wasn't natural. Too smooth. Too controlled. You're not the target. Yeah, I muttered, shifting my stance slightly. I figured. Something moved behind him. Not an attacker. Someone else. Small. Still. Watching. That was when it clicked. This wasn't random. This wasn't a robbery. And it definitely wasn't about me. The third attacker adjusted his aim, but not toward my head. Past me. Toward whatever was standing in the shadows behind. I moved before he fired. I didn't think. Didn't hesitate. Didn't ask why. I just moved. The shot went off the same second my hand closed around his weapon. The energy discharge flared between us, lighting the corridor in a violent flash of white. Pain ripped across my palm, sharp and immediate, but I ignored it. Pain is information. And right now, I didn't need information. I needed him down. I drove my forehead straight into his face. Bone met bone. He staggered. I didn't give him time to recover. One step forward. One strike to the ribs. One final blow to the side of the neck. He collapsed. Silence hit the corridor like a wall. 3 bodies on the ground. Burn marks across the walls. The smell of ionized air and blood mixing into something metallic and sharp. I exhaled slowly. Then I turned. The figure in the shadows hadn't moved. Still watching. Still silent. For a second, just one, I thought maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe I'd just thrown myself into something I didn't understand. Something bigger than a hallway fight. Something I wasn't supposed to survive. I flexed my burned hand once, ignoring the sting. All right, I said quietly, stepping closer. Who exactly were they trying to kill? The figure stepped forward into the light. And everything got worse. The light hit her face first. Not bright, just enough to pull her out of shadow piece by piece. Silver skin. Not pale, not reflective. Alive. Like it held its own faint glow under the corridor lights. Her eyes followed a second later. Gold. Not yellow. Not amber. Gold, the kind you only see in melted metal, shifting and fluid, like they were watching everything at once. She didn't flinch. Didn't rush. Didn't even look at the bodies. She was looking at me. You are injured, she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I glanced at my hand. The skin across my palm was burned black, where the energy discharge had caught it. It should have hurt more. I've had worse, I said. That wasn't entirely a lie. Her gaze didn't move from my face. Not even to the blood on the floor. Not to the broken bodies behind me. Just me. You engaged 3 armed Kareth operatives in close quarters, she said slowly. Without hesitation. I shrugged once. They started it. That almost got a reaction. Almost. Her head tilted slightly, like she was recalculating something. You are not security, she said.
No.
Not station military.
No.
Then what are you? I considered the question for about half a second. Then I gave her the simplest answer. My name is Marcus Kane, I said. I'm 34. I'm from Earth. A pause. Just enough for it to register. Former soldier, I added. Now I fix broken ships for people who don't ask too many questions. That part was closer to the truth. The corridor hummed quietly around us, systems stabilizing after the weapon discharge. Somewhere far off, an alarm tried to start, then cut off abruptly. Someone didn't want attention here. That tracked. Her eyes narrowed just slightly at the word Earth. Not fear. Recognition. That was interesting. You are far from your origin world, Marcus Kane, she said. Yeah, I muttered. About 600 light-years too far, last time I checked.
Why?
I gave a small breath through my nose. Ever try to go home and realize there's nothing waiting for you when you get there?
She didn't answer that. Didn't need to.
Silence stretched between us. But it wasn't empty. It was processing.
Calculating.
She was measuring me. That much was obvious. Most people did it wrong. They looked at size, weapons, posture. She wasn't doing any of that. She was watching how still I stood. That made her dangerous. Behind me, one of the attackers groaned weakly. Not dead. Unlucky. I stepped back without taking my eyes off her and nudged the weapon closer with my foot, just in case. You know who they were? I asked. Kareth mercenaries, she said. Highly trained. Expensive. Yeah, I got that part. They do not take contracts lightly. Meaning? Her gaze finally shifted, just for a second, toward the bodies. Meaning whoever sent them expected success. I let that settle. 3 professionals. In a sealed corridor. No witnesses. No alarms. No backup.
Yeah.
That wasn't random. That makes you important, I said. Her eyes came back to mine. I was beginning to think the same about you. A faint smile touched the corner of her mouth. It didn't reach her eyes. I hit them with their own mistakes, I said flatly. That's all. That is not all. She stepped closer. Not afraid. Not cautious. Just certain. Up close, I realized she was smaller than I thought. Barely reached my shoulder. Light build. No visible weapons. And still, those 3 had come for her. You moved before intent was visible, she continued. You closed distance faster than their targeting systems could adjust. You chose lethal vectors without hesitation. That faint smile again. You are not just a mechanic, Marcus Kane. I didn't answer.
Didn't need to.
She already knew. The station lights flickered once more. Then steadied. That was when I noticed something else. Too quiet. No footsteps. No security. No crowd gathering. After a firefight like that, that meant one thing. This corridor's locked down, I said. Yes. You did that? Yes. Before or after they attacked? A small pause. Before. I looked at her properly then. Really looked. You were expecting them. I was expecting someone. That was worse. A lot worse. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly. All right, I said. Let's simplify this. I gestured at the bodies. 3 elite mercs show up in a sealed corridor that just happens to be empty, targeting someone who already locked it down in advance. I met her eyes. That's not bad luck. That's a setup. Yes. No denial. No hesitation. Just confirmation. And you're still standing here, I added, which means either you've got backup. I glanced around the empty corridor. Or something went wrong with their plan. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. They were not supposed to reach this far. Yeah, definitely a setup. And I had just walked straight into the middle of it. I flexed my burned hand again. The pain was sharper now.
Good.
That meant nerves were still working. All right, I said quietly. Next question. I took one step closer. Who are you really? She held my gaze for a long moment. Then very calmly she said, Someone who is about to become a much bigger problem than you intended to involve yourself with. I stared at her. Then I gave a short, dry laugh. Yeah, I said. I'm starting to get that feeling. Behind us, somewhere deep in the station, something heavy shifted. Not machinery. Movement. More of them. I looked back toward the dark end of the corridor. Then back at her. We don't have long, I said. No, she agreed. For the first time since I'd seen her, there was urgency in her voice. Then start talking, I said. Because if more of those things are coming... I picked up the fallen weapon and checked the charge. I need to know exactly what I just stepped into. She studied me for one final second. Then she said, You stepped into a royal assassination. And just like that, everything got bigger. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. Say that again, I said. A royal assassination, she repeated calmly. No hesitation. No drama. Just fact. I let out a slow breath and looked down the corridor again. Still empty. Still too quiet. Then I looked back at her. All right, I said. Let's assume I believe you. I would recommend it. Yeah, I'm getting there. I stepped past her and crouched beside the nearest attacker. Up close, the details were clearer. Gray skin, thick and layered. Not natural. Engineered. The armor wasn't standard issue either. Custom fit, integrated into muscle lines. Expensive. Professional. I checked the neck. Pulse weak but there. Good. Alive meant answers. You said Kareth, I muttered. I've heard of them. Yes. They don't miss. No. I looked up at her. And they don't take jobs they can't finish. They are very selective, she said. Which means whoever hired them knew exactly where you'd be. I glanced around the corridor. And how to isolate you. Yes. Which means this wasn't a random hit. No. Which means they had inside information. We said that part at the same time. I stood up slowly. Yeah, I said. That's what I was hoping you weren't going to say. Because inside information meant one thing. Whoever wanted her dead was already close. Maybe very close. I turned back toward the far end of the corridor again. Still nothing. But that didn't mean anything. Professionals didn't rush. They waited. How many more? I asked. I do not know. That's not a number I like. It is not one I like either. I exhaled through my nose. All right. New rule, I said. We assume this is not over. It is not. Good. We're on the same page. I walked over to the second attacker and picked up the blade he dropped. Lightweight. Balanced. Energy edge still humming faintly. I deactivated it with a quick motion and clipped it to my belt. Temporary upgrade, I muttered. Her eyes followed the movement. You adapt quickly. Staying alive's a habit. She nodded slightly. Then she said something that shifted everything again. They were not here for me alone. I looked up sharply. What? She stepped closer, lowering her voice, not out of fear, but precision. There was a second objective. Which is? Her gaze held mine. You. I stared at her. Then I gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, no, I said. That doesn't track. It does. I'm not important enough for that kind of attention. You're human. That's not rare. Not here, she said quietly. That made me pause. Define here, I said. This sector, she replied. This station. This corridor. A beat. You are the only human within 27 decks. I blinked once. All right, I said slowly. That's new information. It is relevant information. Yeah, it was. I looked back at the bodies again, mind already running through angles. 3 elite mercs. Inside access. Targeting a royal. And possibly me. That didn't make sense. Unless they didn't expect me, I said. Her eyes sharpened slightly. Explain. I nodded toward the nearest attacker. They came prepared for you, I said. Clean corridor. No witnesses. Fast extraction. I pointed at the weapon still in my hand. But the second I showed up, their pattern broke. They adjusted. Badly, I said. Too fast. Too aggressive. That's not how professionals operate unless something's off script. I met her gaze. I wasn't part of the plan. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you disrupted the operation. Yeah, I said. And now whoever sent them knows that.
Silence. Heavy this time.
Because we were both thinking the same thing. If I wasn't part of the plan, then I was now. I rolled my shoulders once, loosening the tension. All right, I said. Let's update the situation. I held up one finger. You're a royal target. Second finger. Someone with inside access wants you dead. Third. And now I've inserted myself into that equation in a very loud, very permanent way. Yes. Which means I finished. We are both problems now. Yes.
She didn't sound worried.
That was either confidence or experience. Probably both. From deeper in the station, I heard it this time.
Faint.
Metal on metal. Movement. Not random. Coordinated. I tilted my head slightly, listening. They're repositioning, I said. Yes. You expecting backup?
No.
Good, I muttered. Neither am I. I walked past her toward the far end of the corridor, then stopped halfway and turned back. You locked this section down, I said. How long does that hold? Not long enough. Can you open it? Yes. Then we don't wait here. They will be watching the exits. Yeah, I said. That's kind of the point. She studied me again. You intend to move toward them. I intend to move through them. That got a reaction. Small but real. You are outnumbered, she said. Probably. You are injured. Barely. You do not know the layout of a station. I gave her a slight look. Do you? A pause. Yes. Then congratulations, I said. We've just improved our odds. Another flicker of that almost smile. You are very direct, Marcus Kane. Time-sensitive situations tend to do that. The sound in the distance grew louder. Closer. We were out of time. I stepped back toward her. All right, I said. You've got two choices. I am listening. We stay here, I said, wait for whoever's coming, and hope it's only a few more. And the second option? I met her eyes. We move now, I said. Before they're ready. Before they close the net.
A beat.
Before this turns into something we can't walk out of. She didn't answer immediately. Didn't rush. Just stood there, calculating. Then, open the corridor, she said. The wall beside us flickered, then shifted. A hidden panel slid back with a low hiss. Dark passage beyond. Narrow. Unlit. Not standard station design.
Service route, she said.
Unregistered. I nodded once. Good, I said. I like unregistered. I stepped toward the opening, then paused. Something wasn't right. I turned my head slightly, listening again.
There.
Behind us. Closer than before. Too close. They're faster than I thought, I muttered. Yes. I looked back at her, then at the dark passage, then back down the corridor. 3 seconds. That's all we had. Stay close, I said. I intend to. We moved.
Fast.
Into the dark. The panel slid shut behind us, sealing the corridor, sealing the bodies, sealing the evidence, and locking us into something far more dangerous than either of us had planned. As the darkness swallowed the last of the light, one thought settled in hard and cold. This wasn't just an assassination. This was a hunt. And now, we were both in it. Darkness closed in the moment the panel sealed behind us. Not dim light, none. For half a second, most people would freeze. I didn't. I kept moving. Straight ahead. Slow enough not to collide with anything, fast enough not to be an easy target. Behind me, I could hear her steps. Light, controlled, perfectly measured. No panic. No hesitation. Good. That made this easier. Can you see? I asked quietly. Yes. Of course she could. Guide me, I said. 2 steps forward, she replied instantly. Then left. I followed without question. The corridor narrowed as we moved, the air shifting, colder, tighter, carrying the faint metallic scent of old systems that hadn't been serviced in years. Definitely not part of the public layout. Good. Keep your right shoulder close to the wall, she said softly. There is a drop to your left. I adjusted immediately. Maintenance shaft? I asked. Yes. Who built this place? People who did not trust each other. I almost smiled. Yeah, I said. That tracks. We moved in silence for a few seconds more. Then, slowly, the darkness began to thin. Not light exactly, just a faint glow ahead. Enough to shape outlines. Enough to see her. She stepped into that dim light first. And for the first time, I actually saw her. Not just details. Not just fragments. All of her. She wasn't just different. She was precise. Everything about her looked designed. The way the light caught her skin, soft silver with a faint internal glow. The way her hair fell. White, not dull, but bright, like fresh snow under starlight. And her eyes. Still gold. Still watching everything. Still watching me. Up close, the illusion of fragility disappeared. She wasn't fragile. She was controlled. Every movement deliberate. Every breath measured. This wasn't someone who survived by luck. This was someone who had been trained, her entire life, not to fail. You are studying me, she said. Yeah, I replied. Why? I shrugged slightly. Because 3 elite killers just tried to erase you, I said. And you locked down the corridor before they even got there. I met her eyes. That tells me you knew something was coming. Yes. And you stayed anyway. Yes. That tells me something else. She tilted her head slightly. What? You're not just important, I said. You're worth the risk. A small pause. Then, you are correct. No pride. No hesitation. Just truth. We reached a wider section of the passage, an intersection of narrow service tunnels branching in 3 directions. She stopped. So did I. Which way? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned slightly and looked at me, not scanning, not analyzing, just looking. You moved without knowing who I was, she said. Yeah. Why? There it was. The question. The one that actually mattered. I leaned back slightly against the cold metal wall, flexing my burned hand again. The pain had dulled now, still there, but manageable. Honestly, I said. I prefer honesty. I nodded once. They were 3, I said. You were 1. That is not an answer. It is where the answer starts. I pushed off the wall and stepped closer. You ever see something that just doesn't sit right? I continued. Something your brain flags before you even understand why. Yes. That was this, I said. 3 professionals moving on one target in a sealed corridor. I paused. Didn't matter who you were. Her eyes didn't leave mine. That is not entirely true. Yeah, I admitted. Maybe not entirely. A beat. Maybe part of it was instinct, I said. Old habits. Soldier instincts. Something like that. Silence stretched between us again, but this time it felt different. Less like evaluation. More like understanding. You chose to involve yourself in a situation that does not concern you, she said. Yeah. And now you cannot leave it. I gave a small, dry exhale. Yeah, I said again. That part's becoming very clear. For a second, just a second, something in her expression softened. Not weakness. Not vulnerability. Just recognition. You have changed the trajectory of your life, she said quietly. I almost laughed at that. You say that like I had won, I muttered. Her gaze sharpened slightly. You did. Maybe, I said. Didn't feel like it. A faint silence followed that. Then she turned away slightly, looking down one of the tunnels. This way, she said. I didn't move. Hold on, I said. She paused, then looked back at me. Yes. I studied her for a second. Then I asked the question that had been sitting there since the corridor. You said royal assassination, I said. You still haven't told me which royal. A pause. Not long, but long enough to matter. Then she turned fully toward me again. And for the first time, there was no calculation in her eyes. No distance. Just clarity. My name, she said, is Lyrathai Veliner. The name hit like it was supposed to. Not because I recognized it. Because of how she said it. Measured.
Certain.
Final. I am the crown princess of the Aurelian Dominion. Silence. Real silence this time. The kind that doesn't just fill space. It changes it. I stared at her. Then I let out a slow breath. All right, I said. That was it. Just.
All right.
Because what else was I supposed to say? Oh, by the way, sorry I almost got you killed earlier.
No.
This wasn't shock. This was recalibration.
Fast.
Efficient. Necessary. Crown princess, I repeated quietly. Of a multi-system empire, I'm guessing. 2,312 systems, she said. Yeah, I muttered. That sounds about right. I ran a hand over the back of my neck. Okay, I said. So, let me update the situation again. I held up a finger. You're not just important, you're critical. Second finger. Someone with enough power to hire elite Kareth operatives wants you dead. Third. And now you're stuck in a maintenance tunnel with a human mechanic who just made himself very visible in your assassination attempt. Yes. Great, I said. Love that for me. A flicker of something, almost amusement, passed through her expression. You are handling this well, she said. I'm compartmentalizing, I replied. A useful skill. Yeah, I said. Keeps you from panicking when things get stupid. Her head tilted slightly again. This situation is stupid? I gave her a flat look. Princess, I said, this situation is extremely stupid. That actually got a reaction. Small, but real. A faint breath of something that might have been a laugh. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. Not drastically, but enough. She wasn't just a target anymore. And I wasn't just some random bystander. We were in this together now, whether either of us liked it or not. From somewhere behind us, a distant metallic echo. They had found the corridor, or what was left of it. They're catching up, I said. Yes. I adjusted my grip on the weapon. All right, princess, I said. Lead the way. She turned without another word and moved into the tunnel ahead. I followed, because now I knew exactly what I was protecting. And more importantly, why someone wanted her dead. But the real problem? That was just starting to take shape. Because people don't risk this much. For something small, the tunnel sloped downward. Not steep, but enough that you could feel it in your balance if you weren't paying attention. I was paying attention. Every sound, every shift in air, every echo behind us. They were still there. Distant but closing. Where does this lead? I asked. A secondary transit ring. Lyrathai replied without slowing. Cargo routing level. Lower traffic. Fewer surveillance nodes. Fewer witnesses, I said. Yes. Convenient.
For them, she said.
Not for us.
Fair.
We moved through another narrow section, ducking under exposed piping. The faint light from earlier faded again, replaced by low emergency strips running along the floor, just enough to keep from walking blind. Tell me something, I said. She didn't look back.
What?
Why aren't you dead already? That made her slow, just slightly. Clarify. 3 elite operatives, I said. Inside access. Controlled environment. Clean kill opportunity. I stepped over a narrow gap in the floor, then continued. And you're still here. A beat. That tells me one of 2 things. And those are, either whoever planned this underestimated you. I paused. Or they're not done yet. She stopped walking.
So did I.
For a moment, the only sound in the tunnel was the distant hum of the station's core systems and the faint, steady rhythm of pursuit behind us. Then she turned. Fully this time. And when she spoke, there was no softness left. No, she said quietly. They are not done. Something in the way she said it. Not fear. Not doubt. Recognition. Like she'd seen this kind of thing before. All right, I said slowly. Then let's stop pretending this is just a failed hit. She held my gaze. It is not. Good, I said, because this feels bigger than a corridor ambush. It is. How big? A pause. Then, my people have ruled this region of space for over 8,000 years, she said. Her voice shifted, not louder, not dramatic, just heavier. Before your species discovered faster-than-light travel, before most of the younger civilizations even formed coherent governments, the Aurelian Dominion was already established. I said nothing. Let her continue. We do not expand quickly, she went on. We do not conquer without cause. But we endure. Her eyes flicked toward the tunnel ahead, then back to me. We have endured wars, collapses, rebellions, and extinction-level threats. A slight pause. And we are still here. Yeah, I was starting to get the picture. So, I said, ancient empire, massive territory, stable power structure. I tilted my head slightly. And now someone inside that system wants you gone. Yes. Why? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer. Close enough now that the low light caught the fine details in her expression, the tension she wasn't showing before. Because I am next in line, she said. Next in line for what? The throne. Right. There it was. I exhaled slowly. Okay, I said. Now it makes sense. Does it? Yeah, I replied. Power transition. Old systems destabilize. People start making moves. I glanced back down the tunnel behind us. Assassination before succession. Clean. Quiet. Blame it on something external. Yes. But this wasn't clean, I added. This was loud. That is because it failed. Or, I said, because it wasn't supposed to look clean. That made her pause. Just for a second. Explain. I shifted my stance slightly, thinking it through out loud. If someone inside your system wants you dead, I said, they don't just want you gone. They want control of the narrative. Her eyes sharpened. Continue. They want confusion, I said. Multiple layers. External murks, internal access, misdirection. I pointed back toward where we came from. 3 operatives? That's not certainty, that's noise. Noise. Yeah, I said. Something to start the chain reaction. I stepped closer, because if this was just about killing you, I gestured to the empty tunnel. You'd already be dead. Silence. Heavy again, because she knew I was right. So this is bigger, I said quietly. Not just assassination. Yes. Then what? A long pause. Then, a fracture, she said. I frowned slightly. Define that. My people are not as unified as we appear, she continued. There are factions, ideologies, conflicts that have been contained. Contained how? By time, she said. By tradition. By power. And now, she said softly, those things are no longer enough. I let that sit. Ancient empire. Internal divisions. Power transition. Assassination attempt. Yeah, this wasn't just a hit. This was the beginning of something much worse. How many sides? I asked. I do not know. That's not reassuring. No. Any idea who's behind it? A pause. Then, yes. I looked at her. Let me guess, I said. Someone close. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I muttered. It's always someone close. From behind us. Closer now. Footsteps. Not hiding anymore. They were accelerating. They've committed, I said. Yes. That means they're confident. Or desperate. Both, I said. I looked back at her. Where's the nearest exit? 2 levels down, she said. Cargo ring access. How exposed? Very. Good, I said. She frowned slightly. That is not a positive variable. No, I said, but it forces them to move in the open. Understanding flickered in her eyes. You intend to change the engagement space. Exactly. I adjusted my grip on the weapon again. Tight corridors favor them, I said. Numbers, ambush angles. I nodded toward the direction ahead. Open space levels the field. You are still outnumbered. Probably, I said. But I won't be boxed in.
A beat.
Then she nodded. Agreed. We moved again. Faster this time. The tunnel widened slightly as we descended, the emergency lighting growing brighter, faint orange strips replacing the dim blue. The air changed too. Warmer.
Heavier.
Closer to active systems.
Almost there, she said.
Good, I replied. Behind us. A sharp metallic sound. Closer than before. Too close.
They're pushing hard, I said.
Yes. Means they don't want us reaching that exit. Correct. I gave a short, grim smile. Then that's exactly where we're going. We reached the final bend in the tunnel. Light spilled through the opening ahead. Real light this time. Bright and industrial. The cargo ring. Wide space. Multiple entry points. No cover. High visibility. High risk.
Perfect.
I slowed slightly as we approached the threshold, then stopped. Lirithai turned back to me. Why did you stop? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I listened. Behind us.
Ahead.
Above. Then I said, because this is where it changes. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What changes? I met her gaze. Up until now, I said, we've been reacting.
A beat.
Out there. I nodded toward the open cargo ring. We stop reacting. A second of silence. Then, we make them react. Something shifted in her expression again. Not fear. Not uncertainty. Something sharper. Approval. Very well, she said. I took one step forward into the light. Weapon ready. Senses sharp. Heart steady. Because now, this wasn't just survival. This was strategy. And somewhere out there, whoever started this was about to realize they had made a mistake. The cargo ring was too open. That was the first thing that hit me. Not the size, though it was massive. A circular expanse of metal platforms, suspended walkways, and stacked cargo containers rising 3 levels high. Heavy machinery lined the outer walls. Loading cranes hung dormant above like sleeping giants.
No.
It was the silence. A space built for movement. Completely still. They cleared it. I said. Yes. Recently. Yes. I stepped forward slowly, scanning angles, entry points, elevation lines. Nothing moved. That didn't mean anything. It meant they were waiting. Stay behind me, I said quietly. I will stay beside you, Lirithai replied. I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. We moved along the inner curve of the ring, keeping distance from the central platform. Too exposed there. Too many sight lines. Talk to me, I said under my breath. Now's the time. About what? About who wants you dead, I said. Because if this is what it takes to get to you, I gestured subtly around us. Then we're not dealing with a small faction.
No, she said.
We are not. Names, I said. A pause. Then, my uncle. I didn't stop walking. Of course it is. His name is Coroner Vieliner. Title: High Duke of the Inner Court. I let out a quiet breath. Yeah, I said. That's not small. He commands influence across multiple houses. Military, political, economic. And he stands to gain what? I asked, though I already knew. If I die before succession, she said, he becomes next in line. Clean, I muttered.
Simple.
Effective. It would be, she said quietly, if it were only about succession. I glanced at her. It's not.
No.
Then what else? She slowed slightly, just enough that I noticed. My uncle is not acting alone. Of course he wasn't. Who else? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, the Purity Accord. I frowned. That sounds like trouble. It is. Define it. They are a political movement, she said. Publicly, they advocate for cultural preservation across the older civilizations. Publicly, I repeated. Yes. And privately? They believe the galaxy has been diluted. I stopped walking, turned to face her fully. Diluted how? Her golden eyes held mine. By younger species.
A beat.
By humans. Silence.
Heavy. Cold.
All right, I said slowly. Now we're getting somewhere. They believe your kind should never have been allowed into interstellar governance. Yeah, I said. That sounds about right. They believe your expansion is destabilizing long-standing power structures. It probably is, I admitted. They believe, she continued, that if humanity is not contained now. She didn't finish the sentence.
Didn't need to.
It will become something they cannot control, I said. Yes. I exhaled slowly. Let me guess, I said. You don't agree with them?
No.
Strongly? Yes. Publicly? Yes. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. That'll do it. Because now it made sense. Not just the assassination. The timing. You're not just a successor, I said. You're a problem. Yes. You support human expansion. Yes. You're about to inherit power. Yes. And they can't control you.
No.
I gave a small, grim smile.
Yeah, I said.
That's motive. Silence settled between us again. But this time it was different. Not confusion.
Clarity.
This wasn't random. This wasn't messy. This was deliberate. Precise. Strategic. Your uncle aligns with them, I said. Yes. Why? Power, she said simply. And belief. Meaning he actually agrees with them? Yes. That's worse, I muttered. Much worse. I started moving again, slower now, more deliberate. All right, I said. Let's build the full picture. I gestured slightly as I spoke. Ancient empire. Internal divisions. Political faction pushing anti-human ideology. I glanced at her. You stand in direct opposition to that. Yes. And your uncle sees an opportunity. Yes. Remove you. I continued. Take the throne, shift policy, align with the accord. Yes. And reshape the entire power structure of your empire. Yes. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. That's not just a power grab.
No.
That's a system reset. Yes. I stopped again, because something else clicked. And the mercenaries, I said. They're just the first layer. Yes. Disposable. Yes. Deniable. Yes. I looked around the empty cargo ring again. All that space. All those angles. All of this, I muttered. It's staged. Yes. Meaning we're not the only ones in play.
No.
Right on cue.
A sound.
Sharp. Metal shifting. Above us. I looked up instantly. Catwalk level. 3 figures stepped into view. Then 2 more on the opposite side. Then, movement behind us. I didn't turn.
Didn't need to.
They've closed the perimeter, I said quietly. Yes. How many? I asked. More than before. Yeah, I said. I figured. I shifted my stance slightly, positioning myself between her and the nearest elevation point. They're not Kareth, I added.
No.
Different movement pattern. Yes. More disciplined. Yes. I gave a small exhale, which means they are not mercenaries, she said. Then what are they? A beat. My uncle's personal guard. That explained everything. Better training, better coordination, less hesitation, and far more dangerous. All right, I said quietly. That's an escalation. Yes. They're not here to fail.
No.
They're here to finish it. Yes. I tightened my grip on the weapon. Good, I said. She glanced at me. That is not a logical response. No, I said. But it's the right one. The first of them moved. Not rushing.
Not charging.
Just stepping forward, controlled, precise, confident. They knew they had the advantage. Numbers. Position. Preparation. They thought this was already over. That was their mistake. Marcus. Lirithai said quietly. Yeah. If we fall here, we won't. You do not know that. I do, I said.
How?
I looked straight ahead. At the closest guard stepping into full view. Armor. Weapon. Perfect posture. Ready to kill. Because they think this is the end, I said. A small pause. And it's not. The guard raised his weapon. So did the others. Lines of fire converging. Angles closing. Perfect execution. Textbook. I took one slow breath. Centered. Focused. Because now, this wasn't about escape anymore. This was about breaking something much bigger. Stay behind me, I said. I will not. Trust me.
A beat.
Then, very well.
Good.
That made it simpler. The first shot fired. And everything changed. The first volley should have killed us. Clean lines. Crossfire angles. Elevated positions. Professional. But professionals rely on prediction. And prediction breaks the moment something unexpected happens. I moved into the fire.
Not back.
Not sideways. Forward. The first shot missed because it expected retreat. The second clipped past my shoulder as I dropped low, sliding across the metal floor toward the nearest support column. Move, I snapped. Lyrathai didn't hesitate this time. She followed.
Good.
The column took the next 3 shots, energy bursts cracking against its surface in sharp flashes of blue-white light. I came up on one knee, weapon already raised, and fired once. The guard on the lower platform jerked back as the shot hit center mass. Not fatal. Armor absorbed most of it, but it staggered him. That was enough. Left flank, I said. I see them, she replied. 2 more shifting along the upper catwalk, adjusting position.
Fast.
Too fast. They're adapting, she said. Yeah, I muttered. So are we. I leaned out just enough to fire again, short burst, controlled. Not to hit. To force movement. It worked. They shifted. And shifting creates gaps. Now, I said. We moved. Across open floor, 3 seconds of full exposure. Shots followed instantly, tearing across the space behind us, close enough that I could feel the heat of them. We reached the next line of cover, a stack of reinforced cargo containers, waist-high, dense alloy. Better. Not perfect, but better. I crouched behind it, breathing steady, mind already mapping the fight. 6 confirmed. Maybe more. Elevated positions. Coordinated movement. And they weren't rushing. That was the problem. They're not pressing, I said.
No.
They're hurting. Yes. I exhaled slowly. Toward what? She didn't answer immediately. That told me everything. There's a choke point, I said. Yes. And they want us in it. Yes. Good, I said. She looked at me sharply. That is not ideal. I finished.
No.
I glanced over the edge of the container, tracking their movement again. But it tells me something. What? They need us alive long enough to get there. A pause. Or contained, she said. Same difference for now. Another volley hit the container, harder this time. They were tightening the pressure.
Testing.
Probing. Not committing. Marcus, she said quietly. Yeah. There is a service lift 2 levels below this ring. Accessible how? Through the central platform. I looked toward it.
Wide.
Open. No cover. Exactly where they wanted us. Bad route, I said. It leads to restricted transit corridors, she replied. Unmapped. Secure. Better route after we survive crossing a kill zone, I muttered. Yes. I leaned back slightly, thinking it through. Options were narrowing. That wasn't new. All right, I said. We don't go through the center. Then how? I pointed upward slightly. Above them. Her eyes flicked to the catwalk level. You intend to take higher ground. I intend to break their formation, I said. Up there, they lose angle advantage. It is also where they are strongest. Not if they're forced to react. A beat. You are certain? No, I said. But I like our odds better moving than waiting. Another burst of fire hit the container.
Closer now.
They are tightening, she said. Yeah, I replied. Time's up. I shifted position, preparing to move, then stopped. Something changed. Not in the fight. In the sound. Behind the gunfire. Behind the movement. A low hum, different from the station systems.
heavier,
more controlled. What is that?
I asked.
Lirithai went very still. Then, that is not part of the station. Yeah, I said. I figured. The guards didn't react.
Didn't acknowledge it.
Which meant, they know it's coming, I said. Yes. And we don't. Yes. I gave a small, humorless smile. Great, I muttered. I love surprises. The hum grew louder, closer, not fast, deliberate, like something arriving.
They're stalling, I said.
Yes. For that. Yes. I looked at her. New plan. I am listening. We don't wait for it. Agreed. I checked my weapons, still enough charge. Good. On my mark, I said. We push right flank, take the lower access ramp cut under the catwalk. They will intercept. Not fast enough. A beat. Then, I trust your judgment, she said. That was new.
Didn't comment on it. Didn't have time.
3, I said quietly. Another shot cracked overhead. 2. The hum grew louder.
Closer, she said. Yeah.
1. I moved.
Fast.
Out from cover, straight into the gap between their firing lines. Shots followed instantly, but they were late. Half a second. That's all it takes. I reached the ramp first, sliding down the incline as another burst tore across the space above. Lirithai was right behind me. We hit the lower level hard, metal ringing under impact. No pause. No stop. Keep moving. Left, she called. I followed without question. Tight corridor under the main platform, low ceiling, narrow passage, minimal visibility.
Perfect.
For a moment, just a moment, the gunfire above faded. The pressure eased. The sound of pursuit dulled. And the space around us felt still.
Too still.
We slowed slightly. Not stopping. Just adjusting.
This is wrong, I said.
Yes. They're letting us move. Yes.
Why?
She didn't answer.
Didn't need to.
Because the hum was right above us now. Louder. Heavier. And whatever it wasn't part of their initial plan. Which meant, this wasn't the end of the trap. This was the next layer. I tightened my grip on the weapon. All right, I said quietly.
What? She asked.
I looked ahead into the dim corridor. Then back, toward the direction we came from. Then up, at whatever was moving above us. They just escalated, I said.
A beat.
So do we. We moved deeper into the passage. Straight into something we still didn't understand. And for the first time since this started, I had the distinct feeling that the real threat hadn't even shown up yet. The corridor tightened as we moved deeper beneath the cargo ring. Lower ceiling, narrower walls, less light. Perfect for an ambush. They know we're here, I said. Yes. They're not following.
No.
Which means they are repositioning. Exactly. I slowed slightly, scanning ahead. The passage bent sharply to the right about 20 meters in. No visibility past that point. Bad design for anyone trying to stay alive. Good design for anyone trying to kill. Stay close, I said. I am, Lirithai replied. I shifted my grip on the blade I'd taken earlier, keeping the firearm low but ready. Tight spaces favored speed over distance. This was going to get close. We reached the bend. I stopped. Listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. No breathing. That was the problem. Too clean. They're here, I said quietly. Yes. I leaned slightly toward the corner and moved fast. The first attacker was exactly where he should have been. Close range. Hidden angle. Blade already mid-strike. He was good. Very good. But he was also predictable. I caught his wrist before the blade reached my throat and drove him backward into the wall. Bone cracked under the impact. He tried to twist free. Too late. I ended it in one motion. No hesitation. No noise.
He dropped.
2 more, Lirithai said instantly. I pivoted. Second attacker came from above, drop angle from a maintenance ledge. I stepped inside his descent, drove upward with my shoulder, and slammed him into the ceiling hard enough to break his momentum. He hit the floor wrong. Didn't get back up. The third one, smarter.
He didn't rush.
He stayed back, weapon raised, calculating. Waiting for an opening. That made him dangerous. I moved anyway. Closed the distance before he committed. His shot went wide as I deflected the barrel and drove forward. Short strike.
Direct.
Efficient. He collapsed. 3 seconds. 3 bodies. Silence again. But this time, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like confirmation. They're not trying to stop us, I said. No. They're slowing us. Yes. Buying time. Yes. For what? She didn't answer. Because we both already knew. The hum.
It was louder now.
Not above us anymore. Ahead. I turned slowly toward the deeper section of the corridor. That thing's moving toward us, I said. Yes. Any idea what it is? A pause. Then, yes. I glanced at her. That's not the answer I was hoping for. Her expression didn't change. It is not meant to be defeated in close quarters. I let that sit for half a second. Then I said, great, because that narrowed things down in exactly the wrong way. We moved again. Faster now. No more caution. No more slow advance. Just distance. The corridor widened slightly ahead, opening into a circular junction chamber. Old structural node. Multiple access routes branching outward. And in the center, it was waiting.
Tall.
Still. Not organic. Not fully mechanical either. Something in between. Its frame was sleek, dark alloy layered over something that moved underneath the surface. Not gears. Not pistons. Something fluid. Its head turned slightly as we entered. No face. Just a smooth, featureless plate, and a single line of faint blue light running vertically down its center. It didn't rush. Didn't attack. Just watched. Marcus. Lirithai said quietly. Yeah, I replied. That is a Dominion execution unit. I stared at it. Then I exhaled slowly. Your uncle really wants you dead, I said. Yes. The unit took one step forward.
Slow.
Deliberate. Heavy enough that I felt the vibration through the floor. Capabilities? I asked.
Adaptive combat system, she said.
Self-learning. High resilience. Designed to eliminate high-value targets. Armor. Layered. Resistant to standard energy discharge.
Speed.
Faster than it appears. Of course it is. The unit's head tilted slightly, like it was studying us. Analyzing. Learning. Any weaknesses? I asked. A pause.
Then,
not in conventional terms. I almost laughed. Yeah, I said. That sounds about right. The blue line across its face pulsed once. Then it moved.
Fast.
Too fast. 1 second it was 10 meters away. The next,
it was right in front of me.
I barely got my arm up in time. The impact hit like a freight train, sending me crashing into the wall behind me hard enough to knock the air out of my lungs. Pain exploded across my ribs. Not broken.
Close.
I hit the ground, rolled instinctively, just as its next strike tore through the space where my head had been.
Fast. Precise.
Relentless. Marcus. Lirithai called. I'm fine, I snapped, pushing back to my feet.
Lie.
But irrelevant. The unit turned toward her. Target shift. Bad. I moved without thinking. Close distance. Hit it from the side. Full force. It didn't even stagger. Didn't even react. It just turned its head slightly toward me, like I was an inconvenience. Then it struck again. Faster this time. I blocked. Bad angle. The impact drove me back again, sliding across the floor. Yeah, that wasn't going to work. Direct engagement is ineffective, Lirithai said. No kidding, I muttered. The unit advanced again. No rush. No wasted motion. Just inevitability. It wasn't trying to overwhelm. It was trying to learn. That was worse. Much worse. Marcus, she said again. Yeah. There is a control core in the junction above this chamber. I glanced up. Maintenance access. Small.
Hard to reach.
Destroy that, she said, and the unit will shut down. Of course there is, I muttered. Because there's always a core. The problem is getting to it. The unit stepped forward again. Closer. Adapting. Faster than before. It had already learned my movement pattern.
Great.
All right, I said quietly.
What? She asked.
I'll keep it busy. That is not a good plan? I finished.
Yeah.
I pushed myself up fully, ignoring the pain in my ribs. But it's the only one we've got. The unit moved again. And this time, I moved first. Not to fight. Not to win. Just to survive long enough. To give her the window. Because this wasn't about beating it. This was about breaking the system behind it. And if that thing was learning, then I needed to stay unpredictable.
Messy.
Human. I dodged the next strike by inches. Felt the air move where it should have connected. Good. Still alive. Go. I snapped. Lyrathai didn't hesitate. She moved toward the wall access point, while I stepped directly into the path of something that was designed to kill me. And for the first time since this started, I felt it. Not fear. Not panic. Something older. Something buried. Waking up. Because whatever this thing was, it wasn't human. And that meant it had no idea what it was about to deal with. The first mistake it made was trying to predict me. I saw it in the way it moved. Clean lines. Perfect angles. Every strike calculated based on the last one. Efficient. Optimal.
Wrong.
Because humans aren't optimal. We're messy. I stumbled on purpose. Just enough to throw off its timing. The strike that should have hit my center mass clipped past my side instead. Close enough to feel, but not close enough to land. It adjusted instantly. Faster now. Learning. Good. Let it learn. Marcus. Lyrathai called from above. I need time. Take it. I shot back, ducking under another strike that came a fraction faster than the last. My ribs screamed as I twisted.
Didn't matter. Pain is data.
Ignore it or use it. Right now, I was using it. The unit shifted again, recalculating distance, angle, velocity. It expected consistency.
Patterns.
That was its second mistake. I changed rhythm. Slower. Then faster. Then stopped completely for half a second. Just long enough to break its prediction loop. It lunged. I wasn't there. I moved sideways instead of back, closing distance instead of creating it. My shoulder slammed into its torso, useless against its armor. But not the point. The point was disruption. The point was noise. You are degrading its prediction model, Lyrathai said above me. Yeah, I muttered. That's the idea. Another strike, this one wider, more aggressive. Less precise.
Good.
That meant it was compensating. Overcorrecting. Humans do that too. Difference is, we know when to stop. It didn't. It pressed harder.
Faster.
More force. Less calculation. Exactly where I wanted it. Because the more it adapted, the more it moved away from perfect logic. And closer to something it wasn't built for. Instinct. Marcus, she said again, breath tighter now. Almost there. Take your time, I said, stepping inside another strike and letting it pass behind me instead of blocking. I didn't try to match its strength. Didn't try to overpower it. That would have been stupid. Instead, I survived.
Barely.
Every movement just enough. Every dodge just in time. Every impact redirected instead of resisted. It learned faster. So I changed faster. That's what humans do. We don't win because we're stronger. We win because we adapt to things we shouldn't survive. The unit paused. Just for a fraction of a second. Its head tilted again. That faint blue line pulsed brighter. It was thinking. Analyzing.
Trying to understand.
Good. Because that was its third mistake. Trying to understand something that doesn't follow rules. You're not built for this, I said under my breath, circling slightly. It moved with me. Mirroring. Learning. You're built for perfect opponents, I continued. Predictable ones. Another pulse of blue light. Stronger this time. You've never fought something like me. It moved again. Faster than before. I barely avoided the strike this time. It grazed my shoulder, sending a jolt of pain down my arm. Closer. Too close. Yeah, It was getting better. But so was I. That's the difference. Machines improve. Humans evolve in the moment. We don't just adapt. We change. Core expose. Lyrathai called. I glanced up for half a second. She was halfway into the access shaft, one hand braced, the other working at a panel hidden in the upper structure. Almost, she added. Good, I said, because I was running out of space. And time. The unit stepped forward again. Closer now. No hesitation. No wasted motion. It had stopped testing. Stopped learning. Now, it was committing. Final phase. Yeah, I muttered. I was wondering when you'd get there. It came straight at me. No feints. No adjustments. Just raw speed. I didn't dodge. Not this time. I stepped into it. Took the hit. The impact slammed into my chest, knocking the air out of me completely. Pain exploded across my ribs, sharp, immediate, real. I felt something crack. Didn't care. Because I was already moving. Already inside its range. Already where it didn't expect me to be. My hand closed around the edge of its frame, and I held on. It tried to shake me off. Too late. Marcus, what are you doing? Lyrathai shouted. Buying you time. I snapped. The unit slammed me into the wall. Hard. Once. Twice. 3 times. Vision blurred. Grip slipped. But didn't break. Because humans don't let go. Not when it matters. Not when it counts. Not when everything depends on it. You want to learn? I said through clenched teeth. Here's something new. I drove my knee into its joint, not to break it, but to disrupt balance. It shifted. Adjusted. Too focused on me. Too committed. Now, I shouted. Above me, a sharp metallic snap. Then, a surge of light. The blue line across the unit's face flickered. Once. Twice. Then, stopped. Everything froze. The pressure vanished. The grip loosened. The weight of it, gone. I dropped to the floor, hard, lungs dragging air back in like I'd been underwater too long. Silence filled the chamber again. Real silence. Not tension. Not waiting. Over. For now. I stayed there for a second. 2. Then I pushed myself up slowly, ignoring everything my body was telling me not to do. Lyrathai dropped down from the access point above, landing lightly despite the urgency. She looked at the unit. Then at me. Then back at the unit. It is offline, she said. Yeah, I replied, breathing uneven but steady. I noticed. She stepped closer, studying the inert machine. You engaged it directly, she said. Yeah. You held it in place. Yeah. You are injured. Yeah. She turned back to me, her golden eyes sharper now. More focused. More aware. You should not have survived that. I gave a small, tired smile. Yeah, I said. I get that a lot. She didn't smile back. Didn't look away. You fight in a way that is inconsistent, she said slowly. Unpredictable, I corrected. Yes. That's the point. She studied me for another second. Then she said something that mattered. Your species is not what we believed. There it was. The shift. Not just in the fight. In perception. That's because you've been looking at us wrong, I said. How should we be looking? I paused. Then I answered honestly. Like something that survived when it shouldn't have. Silence. Heavy again. Because that landed. Because it made sense. Because she had just seen it. Not theory. Not rumor. Reality. We need to move, I said, straightening slightly despite the pain. Yes, she agreed. But understand something, I added. She looked at me. What? This. I gestured toward the disabled unit. This wasn't the real threat. A beat. Then what is? I met her eyes. Whoever sent it. And that was the part that hadn't even started yet. For a moment, neither of us moved. The chamber was quiet again, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. Before, it had been tension. Now, it was aftermath. Temporary. Fragile. And already breaking. Because somewhere above us, the station was waking up. Not alarms. Not chaos. Something worse. Control. They know,
I said.
Lyrathai didn't ask what I meant. Yes, she replied. They've lost contact with the unit. Yes. And that means they will escalate again. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. That's what I was thinking. I forced myself fully upright, ignoring the sharp protest from my ribs. Breathing hurt. Moving hurt. Didn't matter. We were out of time. Where's the fastest route out of here? I asked. There is a restricted transit line 2 corridors ahead, she said. Direct link to the outer docks. Guarded? Yes. Of course it is. I stepped past the inert execution unit, giving it one last glance. It had been built to end things like me. Efficiently. Without resistance. And it failed. That wasn't something whoever sent it was going to ignore. Marcus, she said. I looked back at her. You are injured. I've been worse. That is not reassuring. Yeah, I said. It's not supposed to be. She held my gaze for a second longer, then nodded. Very well, she said. We move. We didn't run. Running makes noise. Running gets you tracked. Instead, we moved fast, controlled, deliberate. Through the exit corridor. Past broken panels. Past systems that were already shifting, locks engaging, pathways rerouting. The station wasn't passive anymore. It was responding. There's sealing sections, I said. Yes. Trying to contain us. Yes. Good, I muttered. She glanced at me. That is not a bad thing, I finished. It means they're committing resources. And that benefits us how? It tells us where they are, I said. A beat. Then, understanding. You intend to read their movement. Exactly. We turned into the next corridor. And stopped. Guards. Not mercenaries. Not hidden. Standing in full formation across the passage. 6 of them. Armor polished. Weapons ready. No hesitation. No doubt. They weren't here to test us. They were here to end it. Royal Guard, Lyrathai said quietly. Not your uncle's personal ones? I asked. No. Then that's worse, I said. Yes. Because that meant something had shifted. Something big. Because Royal Guard don't move without authority. Not like this. Not here. Orders changed, I said. Yes. They're not hiding it anymore. No. The lead guard stepped forward. Weapon lowered, but not by much. Your Highness, he said. His voice was steady. Respectful. Cold. You will come with us. Lyrathai didn't move. Under whose authority? She asked. A pause. Then, by order of the High Council. That hit harder than anything so far. Because that meant this wasn't just her uncle anymore. This had spread. Fast. Too fast. I glanced at her. Her expression didn't change. But her eyes did. That was the moment she understood it too. This is larger than a single house, she said quietly. Yes, the guard replied. Stand down, she said. No. Silence. Heavy. Final. I stepped slightly forward. Just enough. Not aggressive. Not passive. Present. You sure about this? I asked quietly. The guard's eyes shifted to me. Measured. Evaluating. A human, he said. Yeah. You are not authorized to be here. Yeah, I said again. I get that a lot. His grip on the weapon tightened. You will step aside. I didn't move. No, I said. Simple. Flat. Final. The corridor held its breath. Then, weapons lifted. All of them. 6 angles. 6 lines of fire. Perfect execution. Just like before. Only this time. Different stakes. Different scale. Different consequences. Marcus. Lyrathai said quietly. Yeah. If we fight here, we don't walk out, I finished. Yes. I nodded once. Yeah, I figured. A beat. Then I took one slow step forward. The guards adjusted instantly. Tracking. Ready. Waiting for the command. Last chance, the lead guard said. I looked at him. Really looked. Then I said, You don't understand something. A pause. What is that? I tilted my head slightly. This stopped being your operation a while ago. Silence. Confusion. Just enough. Because confusion creates hesitation. And hesitation is everything. Behind me, I felt Lirithai shift. Not retreat. Not fear. Preparation.
Good.
Because whatever happened next, there was no going back. The guard's voice hardened. Final warning. I exhaled slowly. Centered. Focused. Because this was it. Not the end, but the turning point. The moment where everything breaks one way or the other. And deep inside, that feeling, that old, buried thing, was fully awake now.
Cold.
Patient. Ready. Princess, I said quietly. Yes. Whatever happens next, I didn't look back. Stay behind me. A pause. Then, I trust you. I almost smiled. Then, I moved. And the first guard never saw it coming.